Hello and welcome to in12d, Season 2, Episode 3 already. And I'm your host, Susie von Mentenkamp, based in Ireland. And my fellow co-hosts are Kathy in Vermont and Ramzi, who's in Canada. And outside of this amazing hosting from around the world, we have an amazing guest with us today, and we're really grateful. So we're now going over to the UK, to the old island of Albion, to Wales to meet our special guest, James Malins. And we're really grateful that you said yes to come on the show, James.
Yeah, I'm really grateful to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
I'll tell you a little bit about James. I met James in England a few times actually over my visits back and forth in the last kind of 5 or 6 years anyway. And he's really a pioneer for his age group, in my opinion anyway. He's a co-founder of the Light of Albion and a dedicated life coach and spiritual guide. And he's really kind of tuning into that Arthurian tradition and the wisdom of the kind of Arthurian traditions. And I'm really interested. When we were having a conversation last week about the themes for the show going forward, we were looking at like the rising of the divine masculine, and it was James who came to mind. He literally sprung up, and that's how I invited him to be on the show. So James, we'd love you to share a little bit more about who you are and how it feels to be here right now.
Yeah, so first of all, I appreciate a very heartwarming introduction. I'll keep it very succinct. Basically, for many years, I had a passion for people. From realizing that I could change my own life, I thought to myself, why shouldn't other people be able to do it? So this seed or this idea was born of seeking to help people to understand who they really are, their experiences, why have they suffered, why have they been through pains and traumas. And so that led me to eventually doing sort of videos online, talking on some stages, and then I started to coach and guide people and hold space for them to seek to understand who they are, which ultimately, over a period of years, meeting my dear brother Lucas, he introduced me to the Ringing Cedars of Russia, which are all about people connecting back to nature, which to me was the missing piece. It's kind of like, it's all well and good sharing with a person how they can change their life, but if they then have to go back to a 9 to 5, 12 hours, 3 children, look after, holding a relationship, a social life together, it feels unfair, because it's like, to me, that's not how we should be living. So then we connected to the land, seeking to set up villages, people to live sovereign free, forest gardens, very beautiful things. We can talk about that perhaps later. And then ultimately now to the Light of Albion. Lucas and I always have connected on King Arthur, the Lady of Sovereignty, the Lady of the Lake, the stories and tales of old, where we feel that there's a lot of mysticism hidden within the Arthurian traditions. And so that's it. Yeah, that's what's led my journey to this point. The greatest desire that we have is to acquire the land, release the land, whatever it is, so that people, human beings, can go back to a divine connection with nature. So, yeah.
So your divine connection to nature, which is right behind me, only in a picture. I know what draws me to it, but from your perspective and experience with other people, what is the connection that we have with nature?
So this is really interesting, and my answer, I'm curious as to what the feedback will be on it. I found in life that there are certain things that human beings observe that goes beyond the veil. There are certain characters. I believe Princess Diana was one of these. Just a woman, I didn't know her, I can't speak for this, but from the global impact that woman had on people, that pierced the veil. There's no doubt in those. You can feel the love and authenticity from a human being. And I feel that nature does the same thing. For most people, when I was a child, I used to go out in nature a lot, but I didn't quite connect with it at first. You know, it took a little while to start to do so, but when I did, the experiences that came from the connection with nature, how it made me feel, I mean, Susie, there are some interesting stories we have. I mean, the dog being one of them. We've had stories with chickens, all sorts of, 2 dogs actually. But there's something to be said about what nature has to provide. And to me, I don't know how I want to word this exactly, but this last little sentence, if you want to know creation or the truth of the world, or if you have questions about, you know, where is God or the universe or the unity that all that is, all you have to do is go out into nature. Because trees, not only are they majestic, I mean, how some trees grow that big and whatever, it's incredible. But nature is a representation of unconditional love. You know, we are poisoning our soils. I don't want to go too dark with it, but we're poisoning our soils. It's horrendous what's happening, and still the seeds grow. You know, people might say genetically modified, whatever, but still the seeds grow. They grow. Nature continues to provide a space of unconditional love for the human condition. You know, so to me, what greater example could there be of this divine connection between nature? Something that exists that loves humanity so unconditionally that it will grow with hundreds and hundreds of different species to provide people what they need on every level. So that's one of my little inputs.
Yeah, I had the same experience. This took me a while growing up before I connected with nature, but I do find that it is a sacred space where you not only find yourself, but you can find the creator within it. Sitting in silence in that space. And that's why I have this picture, because these are 100-year-old olive trees.
Wow.
And they I don't know, they're very majestic to me, so I had to put it up. Sorry.
That's great.
Yeah.
So James, you're working on a new way to live in a community. So what are, you talk about these connections. What different things are you doing so that you feel those connections and bringing people together and living that way? How would it be different than, I live in Vermont on a mountain. How would it be different than someone in an urban environment?
So first of all, we have trialed what we are seeking to do on 2 different farms. It didn't quite work out. So at the minute, we are in a process of going from one chapter into another to acquire the land to actually practically get on with it. Because that's been the biggest thing up to this present moment. In answer to the question, what do we kind of do in order to establish that connection now? I mean, we also live in the mountains, so we're literally at the base of Erwifa, which is Snowdon, which is the other known term for it. So I go out with my lemon every morning and I just look up at the mountain right in front of me. Which I said to myself the other day that I will never get used to that sight, because it's easy to get comfortable, but it's so beautiful. However, I suppose my answer to this question is almost a little bit, I'm going to take in a different direction. And what I realize is, going back to what I mentioned about guiding people to understand their truth and where they are, if somebody doesn't have land with trees and vegetables and flowers and all of the things that we should have, it feels to me like a component is missing. And so something in my mind clicked, and I said to myself, and I suppose we all agreed, that it's not enough anymore. It's not enough to just coach or guide someone or try to do this and try, hustle and grind. And the recommendation now is, if you're not working 16 hours and bleeding at your computer screen or sacrificing your existence and your energy in a digital world to make money to survive, it's all lunacy to me. So it's like, and that happens for a lot of, sorry, because you mentioned about the urban environment. So now it's about, at some point in our near future, land has to become available. In whatever means that happens, I don't know, but it has to become available, because we need to be able to present to people a way of life that's good and wholesome, that provides them with everything they should have had from birth, and actually practically offer them that little parcel of land or whatever it is, so that they can do it and they can leave the old world, in quotes. There's a conversation there, but go from a world that's heavily digital or electronic into one where we have the beautiful trees that we're surrounded by. So for people in an urban environment, the only thing I can say, and my heart goes out to people in cities and things like this, is hopefully you have parks, but ideally people want to be living out on the land, where your feet can be on the grass, where you can feel the clean air, because a lot of cities, the air is, it's hard not to be cynical when talking about things like this, but but the truth is that, until the world starts making land available for human beings to live the way we should be living, we're compromising. We're compromising in cities, often in towns. So I'll leave it there, and I'll ask you your thoughts on that. But that's the gist.
It's the way it is, and it's interesting. I've been in conversations with groups of people in the recent months, and the conversation generally leads into what's becoming of us, in this kind of digital artificial intelligence age. Are we getting lost in here somewhere? And when I really tune in and listen, my kind of belief deep down is that nature will actually guide us out of that. It'll draw us out, because it's innate in us. It's our nature actually to find balance and harmony by connecting through the elements. And so what we need, we'll seek, because the body won't stop nudging us and pushing us to kind of go and seek what you need. It's kind of like when you get a craving for something when you're under the weather, and you kind of just know you need that, hot lemon and ginger water or whatever it is, because your body is trying to give you that information. So I think our human intelligence and our true nature will guide us towards that. It mightn't be as streamlined and simple, but I think most people will find their way to the mountains, to the rivers, to the seas, to the, and there'll be that point in time where they'll, like you at some point, I'm guessing, had to stop and say, hold on a second, what is this expectation that's life set out for me? And that's really what my next question for you is, James, because we talk about, ordinary people who are living extraordinary lives. And, there must have been a point where you were probably being groomed for whatever, even though you had a very loving family, but society in general is grooming, young people in a certain direction. Was there a moment that was kind of an instantaneous moment? Was it a gradual pivot? How did that occur for you?
So I adore this question, and my answer to it is very, very close to my heart. And for, just one last point on that is, I suppose what we're seeking to do is purely facilitate what you mentioned about that direction back to nature. That's all that we really want to do. And so leading from that, and I suppose I will speak upon this with the ideas of my future partner, because this is something that's a great inspiration for me. Again, I speak as a man, so for people watching, if a different word or terminology resonates with you, then please feel free to swap. But over my life, you're absolutely right, Susie. In school, music, films, TV series, even games, or video games, or even nightlife, which I never particularly was drawn to, which the gym was a huge reason why I wasn't. But for a lot of my friends, they were drawn to the nightlife, and it was very vulgar, very crude. There was no thought put into the fact that we are human beings. It was, and even saying it repulses me, but it was about numbers, with intimacy with partners. It was about numbers. It was about prestige. It was about thinking. There was no heart in it. And so for me over the years, having loving parents and people who guided me helped tremendously, of course. But I started to realize that in my interactions with women in relationships and when I would connect with a partner, my answer is going to be very interesting here, but I'm going to say it and just bring it together. by showing my partner compassion, understanding, by listening, by loving, by making them feel safe, by seeking to hold a space for whatever they needed, I got the absolute best version of that human being. And
Wow.
the rewards, which is the word I don't particularly like because it makes it assume that, but I'm going to use the word, the rewards of doing that, you can't put them into words. The love, the experience, the connection with a partner that's then developed by purely holding this, which I suppose connects with the Arthurian traditions, the chivalry, the honor, the compassion, etc., service. By just being a good person and being different to the average or the usual, I don't like that, sounds derogatory, but the average or the usual, what you receive in return is night and day. And this is what I couldn't understand, is that people didn't understand this. You know, they were trying to manipulate women, or women were trying to manipulate men, or is this power trip all the time, or people were fighting, and I just couldn't fathom it. You know, I couldn't fathom it. So for me, I'm dearly passionate about this because a lot of men have been taught to control, to play the game, and then same with women, and it's just all nonsense. Because if people truly understood the quality of relationship and connection that you can have if you just embody the qualities of compassion, love, holding space, not, and I don't know if you allow swearing here, but not BSing. Okay, not bullshitting around and, you know, making somebody feel uncomfortable or unsafe. If people can just focus on good virtues and qualities, your relationships and the quality of relationships just goes into the stratosphere. So I'll stop there. But that's what's happening. In the modern world, people are being led down lust and vulgarity, if that's the word, and being taken down a dark path, thinking that there is this pleasure or this great thing at the end of it, and it's total horseshit. If people understood really at the end, a wholesome, loving, decent connection, they would laugh at the attempt of the opposite. So, yeah.
So what was there one moment for you? Like, what was your, like, was that a gradual, like, so it was inherent in you to see that, okay, what was on offer wasn't your gig, it wasn't resonating with you on any level, and so it was just your own natural instinct expressing? It wasn't one kind of aha or profound sort of wake up moment?
So again, I have to go back to the appreciation of my mother and father and what family members I did have. I had a very sparse family, but what family members I did have, because they showed me such love. Anything other than that was alien. Not that it was interesting. I haven't thought about that ever, so I'm not going to say that completely. But it was like it was alien to me. It was like, you know, I didn't like fighting in relationships, arguing. Again, people said you'd always argue. Again, I always think that's nonsense. You can have a difference of opinion and discuss it, but fighting and going to war with each other, no, it makes no sense. So when I did, I mean, there was one relationship I had specifically. Okay, sorry. So because of my early childhood, I developed an appreciation, particularly of women, you know, and and females in my life. And so because I had that appreciation and that gratitude, that helped to then foster I'm not going to do any of the other stuff that people then normally do because I'm not interested. And if that's a part of the parameters of us being together, it ain't for me, you know. And of course, if you connect that with being a bit of a rebel in my early years and kind of rebelling against the system and everything else, then what was then fed to me, I kind of rejected as well. So it led to a path of seeking to connect with a partner in love. Was it always a success? The world makes it very hard, but it was certainly an intention. And so that is just what really laid the foundations for me to seek to be a good person with people. I think answers the question.
Can I just give you a compliment? Because I sit here as a mother of a 19-year-old son who is trying to figure out how to be in the world. And I'm going to have him listen to this.
Oh, okay.
because you are a role model that I think he would appreciate, and make him not feel so alone in the respect that he does have for other people. You know, he's like wandering around in this jungle of vulgarity. It can be, that's a good word for some of life when you're a 19-year-old boy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm so glad to hear this. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, Kathy. Thanks.
It is a breath of fresh air talking about it because of the situations around us. But I just want to, no, I don't want, I have a question. Now, we see the world moving in a certain direction, not in the right direction. And I know for a fact from people that I talk to, I work with directly or indirectly, there's a sense of lost. I'm not sure where to go. But swearing sounds good. Or this toxic masculinity was bad. And now this is the right way to do things. And I truly believe there's a new generation that are not sure who they are and how to act within the environment they are. Now, that said, what would be, from your perspective, a best way to gear them into the right way? Because once you set your mind on a way, it's hard to change. Just like religion, you're born into it, and good luck trying to switch from one religion to another. Sorry, I had to throw it in there. I don't know why.
No, it makes sense. Incredible question, and I appreciate the question very, very much. I suppose this is why Lucas and I have come up with the Light of Albion, and I have to, Susie, appreciate our dear friend Sue, because she certainly planted the seeds of the light in Britain, and a few other books and thoughts in the past. Dear friend of mine, and so the Arthurian. Again, going back to kind of the point of Diana in nature, Princess Diana in nature, and perhaps other human beings who've had this great effect on humanity, there are some things that are untainted. Interesting word. There are some things that are untainted. There are some things that are incorruptible. And so the Arthuriad for us is an example of something that perhaps has quite dark stories within there, but within it there's a morality, within it there's a code of honor, there's a set of virtues, there's a set of ideas. Some of it may have been perhaps tampered with, like with, I think, as you mentioned, many religions. I take Christianity with the divine feminine in there, women who were often put down in the stories. Again, total nonsense, absolute complete nonsense. My life has been a divinely guided, strong words there, a divinely guided blueprint of me being supported by the feminine, divine feminine, women, whatever word fits. It has been the sole reason why I am what I would like to class, the people will have to confirm this for me because I can't say it myself, why I consider myself very balanced in my masculine, balanced in my feminine, because anyway, so in answer to your question, I'm always an advocate of an individual empowering themselves. However, if an individual has never had a role model or never had anything to bounce off of, for them to question, okay, I don't like the way people are doing that, but I like that. I like that this person is actually being calm in very hostile situations, or they're met with pain and suffering and they remain composed, or they're thinking and contemplating instead of just droning off into a device or whatever. And so I'm an advocate of self-empowerment, people needing nothing but themselves. I'll always be like that. But there is something to be said about having people in the world who can present something to people and say there is a better way. It doesn't have to be that way. And so, Kathy, that's why your compliment and your words I deeply appreciate, because I seek to have that self-reflection constantly. To say these things is all well and good. To live it is a different question entirely. You know, words are powerful, they have a place, but to live it is different. And so I hope, I would like to be a presence for people, perhaps like Lucas, and the Light of Albion will eventually find women who will join, no doubt, and be role models within there. But that's kind of the point, you know. We aren't comfortable just living life without seeking to give back. And I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen the things on Instagram and stuff like this. It is degraded further than I ever thought possible. It's really become something. So now is the time for people to step up and have authentic presentations, you know. And so for us, I guess, and I'll stop after this sentence, the Arthurian mysteries or traditions or histories or legends, they hold within the stories things that people might be able to pick from that aren't particularly present, but yet they are, you know. So it's like they can hear a story from there and think like, okay, I can seek to try and embody that. Let me see where I can fit it into my life. And so, yeah, I hope that answered that in a roundabout way.
Anyway, do you? Sorry, I have a follow-up question. Would you recommend, or I don't know how to frame this question? Is that, are there people around that we can gear the youngsters towards, where other than the Albion website that we've been sharing over here, other spaces where they could feel secure and be able to see what living from the heart means, not only to the environment that they're in, but also to themselves? You know, we're in a world right now that is semi-dark, and I say semi because the light is always here. But there's a sense of lost. You know, that's how I feel personally, is that the young generation is totally lost. My generation we thought we were lost, but God, we had it easy. Seeing what's happening today, you know, I'm twice your age, just to put a perspective to it. So I just want to be able to say, okay, well, you know what, guys, why don't you try to look at these people or model, or just be in this safe space and see how it feels. Because right now, what I see is that most of us are, and what I mean by us is most of the world is going by the mind, and we kind of disconnected from the heart completely. And we just have to get that little switch to reconnect so that we are better people to ourselves. Forget the outside world, to ourselves. Because once we are to ourselves, and what I see through you is that connection is what I want the young generation to model. I hope
yeah, and again, yeah, no, that's perfect. And again, I appreciate that. It's really interesting because you mentioned about a location that wasn't considered the Light of Albion. And at the minute, I suppose even because of my own questions of reality and people, I can't say I have an exact place, but this is what I will say. If an individual can begin to change their frame of reference from a negative, derogatory path, and just, even if it's once a day, just change the frame of reference. So you see something that's negative, so you see something on the news or on TikTok or on Facebook or whatever, and it's negative, and it's all about doom and gloom. If you can just reframe one thing, even if you're in a city and you can go outside onto the street and look up at the sky, even if it's cloudy, even if it's raining, whatever, even if you can just have appreciation for the rain because you know that somewhere around the world it's watering the plants that you will eventually have. Change the frame of reference, because I feel dishonest? No. I feel disheartened by suggesting that a person can reach. Okay, hold on. No, it's not how I want to word that. There's a part of me that doesn't feel comfortable. That's how I would say it. There's a part of me that doesn't feel comfortable suggesting for a person who's working a 9 to 5, or even a young man or woman who's involved in the world the way it is now, and saying to them that it's all going to be easy, or to find a place without them having the land that they're owed. So the one thing I will say on that is, if they can change their frame of reference, just to each day seek to be a better person in one way, shape, or form, whether it's listening to one ideal or one virtue or something along these lines, just something that is self-empowering in a humble and loving way, as opposed to something that is to a detriment to themselves or another person. So this is how I live my life. If I always try to observe my behavior, the things I say, the words that I speak, what is the effect that my state, my presence on this planet is having on another person? If I know that it's having a negative effect due to choices that I'm making that I can change, that aren't particularly beneficial to that person, I can then seek to change them. If there's nothing I can do about it, so be it. But I find that question hard to answer, because I suppose personally I don't see many role models. Are there? No doubt, I'm sure there are.
I think I'll interject, because I think there are role models in other like walks of life, you know, in sport, in music, in art, in performance, in dance, in any of creative kind of creativity. Like there are definitely, like the Olympics, you know, watch the Olympics and it's like, wow, you know the dedication that these men and women have to put into. And it, to me, it comes down to discipline and like consistency, and also with a little bit of clarity of intent, like getting clear of what do I actually want, and to ask for it. I would like to feel more peaceful in myself, or live with more joy, or and like you said, it can be just one thing like that you just say differently to yourself every day, your self-talk, your kind of internal dialogue. And from something that I have been working with myself personally and with other people a lot, is working with archetypes, so when people do a meditation, for example, and you become very receptive at the end, we'd often say, okay, the archetype doesn't even necessarily have to be a Greek goddess, or an Arthurian legend, or a Celtic warrior or something like that. It can be somebody alive. It can be your grandmother. In another situation, you could be going for a job interview, and maybe it's I don't know, God forbid, Elon Musk. Whoever, like your role model or archetype for whatever your particular challenges can come from any walk of life, past, present, future, if you ask me. And sometimes what I do for people is I suggest, just find, if you can't locate a person or a visual of who it is or name it, try to define what the quality you're looking for is. So maybe today's looking a bit challenging. Do I need courage? No. Do I need balance? Do I, have I not slept? Do I need energy? And it's just to give yourself those couple of minutes every day to check in and ask yourself, how am I doing? What do I need? Like, what do I need to put into my own, like I call it like meditation as opposed to self-medication. Yeah. But, I think it's a good way to, to start practicing that. But something I'm really interested in is looking towards other archetypal figures, like, that maybe we can energize them, and we can, breathe life back into them. And when I was looking at some of the research on some of your websites and, some of the information you have out there, I saw at one point that you're studying at the moment something to do with like Celtic Reiki. I found that really interesting. It's a link on one of your websites that takes you into the Sons of Asgard. Is that what it is? Or
interesting. Yeah, interesting. Amazing. Couple of gentlemen that do that. So one thing I did do with the Sons of Asgard that I've almost finished with is Gaian forest bathing.
Oh, so beautiful.
Yeah, so that's slightly different to what you mentioned about the archetypes, perhaps. But
Yeah.
again, it's about, because like you've mentioned, we can find people as role models in the world. We can find energy personalities as role models, with certain qualities, like you said, courage, etc. Or it can be the space of nature. So there's always a way for a person to tap into their truest self, even if they're working 7 days, 12 hours each day, and they only get a day off on the 8th day. At least on that 8th day, Lucas works hard, bless him, and we might go up a mountain, and the mountain just clears everything. It's Lucas likes to say it's legs, heart, and lungs, which I like. It's legs, heart, and lungs, and so but that gives clarity of mind. It centers you, it sets you in place. So I'll stop there and see if there was anything you wanted to add to.
I'm going to give Kathy a chance.
Okay. Oh.
You're on mute, Kathy.
We can't hear you, Kathy. Sorry.
Some feedback from your friend Sue.
Bless you.
Yeah, everybody's really appreciating this. You said something, I think before we started, you mentioned the creative faculties of the mind.
Yeah.
Can you loop that into this?
Absolutely. And I appreciate that. It's an excellent comment to make, because one of the things I wrote on my little notes here is that when we're thinking about role models or young men and women, or men and women as a whole, or children, and how they make sense of the world they've been born into, when they're presented with things that they assimilate, and then they get later on in life. And Ramzi, I appreciate what you said about lost, because a lot of people do feel lost. There's so much information out there now, more so than ever before. The information age is at its absolute peak, and so men and women and teenagers and children trying to make sense of the world. How do they do that? And so for me, it always includes every element of the self. I have a body. I'm looking through my eyes. I only know what it feels like to look through my eyes, to feel my heart beating. I have my thoughts. I can close my eyes and meditate. I can visualize. So I know I have my body. I know I have my mind. And I know that when I'm dreaming or when I'm thinking, that this is my soul or spirit. For me personally, these are 3 concrete facts that I know from personal experience. And so the creative faculties of the mind has long been known as the force of creation in our world. And every single human being has it. If a human being can activate belief, the appropriate feeling, the clarity of idea, which is what you mentioned, Susie, and the persistent, absolute belief in this path forward, it has no choice but to be born. And so I know when I was growing up, the intention to dissolve my confidence, my sense of identity, my sense of self was huge. I don't know what it's like nowadays, because I'm 30. I don't know what it's like to be a 13, 14-year-old in this day and age. I'm no doubt it's incredibly challenging. But I know that the greatest, I don't like this word, but I'm going to use it, agenda was for me to not know who I was. School forced that upon me. And it was only my fierce, as I said before, rebellion, which led me down a path of, insert naughty word, everybody, I'm going to be who I know I feel I am. And I'm going to be that no matter what. That means that losing friends, being unusual or unknown, I'm going to be this because I know it's what feels right. So for every human being, if they can understand the creative faculties of their truest self, not the version of them that's not got confidence, not the version of them that is being coerced down this path or another, but just themselves. Okay, what makes them feel happy and joyful? And then, perhaps I've answered that in a roundabout way, but if you can if you're then tapping into your desires and what it is you want, there's nothing you cannot have in the world. And I believe that firmly. I like to think, I mean, that goes both ways. It can be used for negative reasons, but as we say in the Light of Albion, if you're seeking to be a man or woman of goodness and decency, you're on the right path, and that's it. That's the only sounding board I believe that people need.
One point over here, which is, to me, it's awesome, and I know you kind of didn't want to go that route, but being yourself was a key to your success. And what I mean by success is not the material things that you achieved, but rather of finding yourself. And in today's society, that is extremely hard to achieve by the young generation. You know, as you get older, you don't care in a way what others say or do. But I lost my chain of thought. What advice would you give a 15-year-old today to stick to his feelings or her feelings rather than going with what is being fed through social media?
So I'm going to flesh out what I said a little while before. The best thing that you can do, hands down, is to, again, change that frame of reference. If you're hearing things or you're seeing attractive, beautiful women, and you're thinking, I don't look like that, or I can't look like that, or I'm not going to be like that, or you're seeing people who apparently have tremendous success, you know, and again, 15, 16-year-olds, this is something that comes up, or you're in school, or you're being bullied, or you're not fitting in, or you're trying to fit in and it doesn't feel right. The best advice I can give you is, first of all, speak kindly to yourself. Always, 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 always speak kindly to yourself. You can speak negatively about yourself, and that's why if you will feel those things, but there's also the opposite, and the world would have you. There are people in the world who would have you speaking negatively about yourself, but always know that you are valued, you are loved deeply, whether it's not by the immediate people around you, you are loved deeply. It's just a fact. Your very existence is an example of that fact. So know that you're loved. Secondly, seek to focus upon the parts of you that you can appreciate. I was the skinny, in quotes, ugly kid. I had it told to me. What I realized, physical attraction, okay, has nothing on the quality of character you embody. If you are a good person, you're seeking to be a good person, I will say a loving person. How that resonates with you as a 15, 18, 19, 12-year-old. If you're seeking to be a good person, you have one of the most beautiful qualities that will serve you for the rest of your life. So if the whole world would have you feeling ugly or pathetic or useless or worthless, doesn't matter. If you're seeking to be a good person, that is a quality that will take you for the rest of on beautiful journeys for the rest of your life. So I will add in, sorry, the kitty's come in, he'll want to go through. I will add in here, when I was a teenager, many people wanted to tell me who I was. They wanted to tell me where I should go, what I was capable of. I was told that I was ugly and all these other things, but I knew who I was deep down. This was from an early age, and you can do the same thing. You can know who you are. You can make the choice to be who you are, even in the face of criticism from friends or family or peers or whatever. Be who you are, because I promise you that later on in life, not only will you know yourself more, but you will find truth and purpose in life. So I hope I worded that in a good way, but I'll leave it there. That's what I will say on that.
I
Beautiful.
love that.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah, like I always think that, you know, there weren't enough people telling us that when we were at that young age. Like, you know, it was competitive, or, you know, it was bullish, or, you know, I think the competitive angle just doesn't help kids at that young age when you're developing, like, you know, because if you believe, oh, I'm slow at running, like,
Mhm.
or I'm this or I'm that, like, if you believe everything you hear at that age, my gosh, it's a lot to work through as you kind of come into your 20s and 30s, for sure. I think now that we're in our mid 50s and a bit older for some of the others here, there's a liberation that starts to happen. You're like, shit, I'm, you know, whoa. But I'd love to see how we can make those kind of course corrections a lot earlier in life, rather than waiting for some, you know, big event in your 40s or something like that. What I'd love to, for our last quarter of this amazing hour together, I could listen to you all night, James. Brilliant. What I'd love to kind of, you know, pivot towards a little bit is, you're an Akashic guide, you know, you're a spiritual mentor, you're connecting to something like light, to all that is. I hate the kind of inverted commas, but, you know, I'm just trying to encapsulate what it really is. I suppose essentially it's coaching from like a higher dimension, and it's something that you're doing. And like, I know one of the occasions of the many that I met you in the UK, I really experienced some really profound moments when we were sitting in a circle in nature by a big body of water, massive trees. And, you know, you really are a gifted channel as well. And I'd love to hear a little bit about that part of your life, how it began maybe, or, you know, where it's led to now, if you wouldn't mind.
Of course, and again, you've you've all been very gracious with your words tonight, so I have to say again that I appreciate that. I can only attribute being introduced to channeling through dear friends of the past, who showed me books and introduced me to the concept. And I just sat there one day and I thought, why not give it a try? And so I read this book, Opening to Channel, and I practiced doing it for about 4 or 5 months. And then, ironically, where was the first time that I started? But I started sort of introducing myself to it, and then there came a point when I just thought, I'll give it a go. And so I started doing it, and over time I will say the connection developed. However, what I am going to say, beyond all of the potential fantasy of channeling, I mean, to me, there's been a lot of science on it now. You can observe that there is genuinely a part of the brain where the personality of an individual turns off and something else is present. However, there is 1 or 2 or 3 experiences that I've had. Susie, one of them was with you. Another one was with Lucas and some friends of ours. I went to channel. I'm taking this conversation. I don't normally talk about this, but I'm taking it to 100% anyway. We channeled in a remote location in the forest, in this beautiful, there's a very beautiful sacred place. And I was channeling with my friends, and they were talking about the chicken and the egg. And after, we have the audio, we have the videos, and we have the pictures of this experience. After we were finished, I was just giving some gratitude, coming back around, and I turned, and from the top of this sort of stone cliff, this chicken flew down, and I was just stunned. And I was like, I whispered to Lucas, and Lucas obviously had, because I was partly out of it when we'd done our session, and he was like, "What?" and it was there, and it was only after when he said to me, "He's like, do you understand how insane that is?" And I'm like, "Why?" He says they were talking about the chicken and the egg, and they were saying that the egg, the shell of the egg is physical reality, and the yolk is the soul, like the sun. And they connected it to the sun, and this chicken out of nowhere flies down, and it followed us all of the way from the forest all the way to the car park, where Lucas ended up giving it some pita breads. Like, we had to give it some. But it was this wild moment where reality, as many have been led to believe, just gone. The connection between this world and the other world, completely apparent. Because in my mind, I had a lot of doubt and I had a lot of apprehension to the channeling. That's why I we kept it between ourselves. Are you trying to say something as well? Sorry. I held with a lot of apprehension because I wanted to make sure that what I was doing had a certain level of genuinity. Is that right word? That answered my question forever. I never doubted ever again. It was ridiculous. So every human being, I believe, has that ability. Is it necessary for every human being to do it? Perhaps not. We've done it, for personal interest. But this is about the connection to what we truly are. This is about the connection to what and who we truly are. And so a human being beyond your identity, I'm James right now, but beyond this, who knows what I am? I forgot. I came here and chose to forget. Beyond this, probably many identities. So when we are able to, and this is why I feel like land, gardens, vegetables, forests can help to deepen that inner connection with our deepest truth. You can tap into whatever it is that you need as you're walking on this journey, is where I'll leave it. So, but yes, really just incredible, outstanding experiences. And there've been multiple, not always in the channeling space either. There've been multiple experiences. Yeah.
I have a question regarding that. So your channeling experience has changed your perception and connection to the spirit world.
Yes.
Is that what I understand? Yeah.
Yeah.
So now it's more of a knowing rather than a channeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Correct. Yeah. And we've noticed that with a lot of people, including ourselves. And I know Susie has a lot of that. It's just I know. And there's no why or who told us. It's just it's a presence.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. Thank you.
And just one last part on that. Again, it to me is an example of unconditional love. So nature, unconditional love. There is a world, I call it the other world, I suppose. There is a world outside of this that is unconditionally loving. You can suffer the most heinous things in the world, and the amount of love is equal for all of us, but the amount of love is still the same. You could be the worst person in the world, the most horrendous person in the world. The amount of love beyond this one for you is the same. So this is a very challenging, limited, authentic, beautiful experience where we have the choice to do and be whatever it is that we are inclined to. That can be an orientation of darkness. It can be an orientation of lightness. Beyond it, it's love. That's the absolute foundation. And I just like that idea, because going back to the young man or woman trying to find a place in this world, if that whole channeling thing sounds mystical to you, all you have to do is find the outlet of unconditional love. Nature, your family, whatever. If you can just feel unconditional love somewhere, even if it's just for yourself, you can empower yourself greatly. Love yourself unconditionally, regardless of what the external world says. So.
When you work with individual clients, because I know you do private readings as well with people, like, don't you? Like, is it like an Akashic record reading? Is it like just to help them with a personal challenge, or to find their path if they feel a little bit kind of like not sure which direction to go in? How does that work? Like, how do you do that? How do you set that up?
You're on mute, James.
The cat. The cat's like, I've got an answer.
You definitely do something, don't you, darling? Eh? You're like, I haven't.
What's her name? Oh, look, we've got a dog and a cat now.
Oh, beautiful. His name's Vincent. He's the most. Everybody will say that, but he is the most beautiful cat in the world.
Vincent. Oh.
Yeah. We call him Vinny Winnie.
Vinny Winnie and Bella Luna.
I love it.
Love it.
So the first thing is the way I work with an individual is I always respect what they know about themselves. So we will go on an exploration. We'll go on a journey. It'll be a journey of asking the right questions, which may or may not involve. Sometimes I will bring things through. I'm very humbly, very lovingly have been able to hold a curious space for a lot of people where I've sort of things have come through that I wouldn't have a clue where they came from, but they came through anyway. And so it's all just about helping a person to find their path, because I feel like we're all going to this is going to be an interesting sentence. We're all going to a destination of such, I believe there will come a point where many people go back to land. I feel like that is a destination. How that particularly translates in physical reality, that's up for discussion, but this is what I believe. There will come a point when people are able to live 365 days in tune with the rhythms of themselves and nature and everything that comes with it. So connecting that to what you mentioned about working with somebody, the same goes with that. It's all about connecting them to their truth in the moment, so that wherever it is that they're going to fulfill whatever it is that they want to fulfill, they can find the authentic truth, which doesn't come from me, in quotes. Hold that space, and they bring it through for themselves. And that's the point. It's all about self-empowerment, that a person can find their own truth, and that's the absolute foundations of what I do.
Cool. Kathy, did you want to say something there earlier? Sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, I'm so in appreciation and totally blown away. Tell me why King Arthur? How did that happen?
Oh.
When my son was young, he loved King Arthur, and he made everything into a sword. And in his mind, he had his team of knights, and he had a code.
Wow.
And those things then they go into the background. So I'm curious how you kept it.
Interesting. They may go into the background, but they will always be there. And so this, again, why are we talking about Diana so much? There are certain things in the world, like Princess Diana. It's just there. It's incorruptible. It can't be tampered with. And so for me, maybe it's just always been there. Because it's funny when you say about the origins of it's not like as a child I was sort of connected. It happened a little bit later on in life. There were a tremendous amount of synchronicities from random people saying things to me, which I won't reveal here, but random people saying things to me where I was like, multiple occasions, where it happened 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, what? So I started then connecting into it, and before I met Lucas and I met, and the first thing we started talking about was King Arthur and the Arthurian. So it was coming up for me at the time. But my answer to that question is that I think for most people, there are lifetimes that are so profound that you can't help but remember them in this one. Maybe sometimes we choose to remember them, but I feel like they permeate through time and space. And so for your son, when you're mentioning that, he just has an inclination, there's no doubt that he's either was a knight in those times, is connecting to that light or that version in some way, shape or form. And the one thing I always like to do when we think about past lifetimes, etc., the one thing that I like to do with it is, what can I use from this apparent lifetime in this lifetime? That's the only thing that really matters to me. In this lifetime, I'm James. I'm James here. But what can you do with what we connect with from the past? So King Arthur is, the last little part there is just a tremendous role model about nurturing the land, the people, and everything that comes with it. So yeah.
I feel like there's a part 2 coming on because we're on the top of the hour. But it feels like we're just at the tip of the iceberg still. We'll definitely love to have you back on, James, to keep going and continue to explore this conversation. It's been really enriching. There's been loads of live viewers. If you saw one there, Isabel Perez says, beautifully said, James. Thank you. You're truly an inspiration to all. So I hope you can really take all of that love back with you. And from the three of us here at in12d, we are deeply grateful for your attention and presence and love and, generosity of spirit tonight, this evening. Where we are, it's this evening. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Before we go, just a quick one. James, anything you're doing right now that you'd like to mention to the viewers? You want to please go ahead. We'll just stretch it another couple of minutes for you.
Okay. Well, again, I just want to say thank you so much for creating the space. It's been a pleasure to talk about these concepts and for you to really, sort of give me the platform to do that. So very grateful. Well, the most obvious one is we've formulated the Light of Albion, myself and my brother Lucas. So that is talking about all of the Arthurian principles, the archetypes, the stories, how we connect that with modern life. And the Light of Albion, no doubt, will evolve as it is already, although we're still talking about that. It's only really just begun. So that will all be a part of land in the future, and villages and communities, etc. And just bringing this idea of restoring the goodness and decency to the world. So, Light of Albion is the most obvious, and if anybody is interested in, working with me with the coaching, then it would be an honor to have that conversation with you and to humbly explore the idea of working with you. And so that's it, really. I just again thank you to all three of you. It's been a real pleasure to be on this evening. So
thank you so much, and really, we're going to set up another time to have a continuation to this chat. Really enjoyed it, and for everyone on the call, or you're going to view it later on, you can find James on all kinds of platforms. Just type his name, James Malins, and you'll find him on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and so on. And we'll put the links down in the chat below. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, James. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next week.